What's going on, guys? MariK here, back with another Dragon Ball Super video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new support from Set 9 Universal Onslaught. Specifically, I want to look at the new Cooler Leader and his new deck milling mechanic. So similar to Janemba, the play strategy for this deck is to mill your opponent out. However, the deck and the support in this set give you the option to be aggressive as well as to mill your opponent. Honestly, I feel like it's a better mill deck than Janemba, although it may not have as much defensive support because Janemba being blue. However, with all the power reduction that is in red, that itself actually works as its own defense strategy, so I honestly think this is going to be a really fun deck to play compared to the Janemba deck. The leader himself is pretty solid, getting to draw every time he attacks a leader card, but the fact that he gets his milling ability every time a battle card's power is reduced, not just once per turn, not just on your turn, not just on your opponent's turn. That is such a good ability. And for it to trigger every time, and it will trigger every time a card is reduced, even if it's multiple cards at a time, it will trigger for each of those individual instances. So, super solid card. Then he's got the additional once per turn, that if it's your opponent's turn, when a battle card's power is decreased, then you get to draw a card. So, really, if you don't want to attack the leader, you don't even have to. You'll get the additional draw, but you don't necessarily need it if you can guarantee that every time on your opponent's turn, you're going to reduce the power of one of their cards, then you're going to get to draw anyways. Now, unless your opponent just chooses to not attack or not play any cards at all during their turn, then that might be a little bit more difficult for you, but then they're also not doing anything to play the game, and they're not going to advance their own plays either. The Awakened side is more or less the same, except now when this card attacks any card, you get to draw a card, but otherwise, exact same abilities, so all in all, he's just a better version of himself on the other side, and honestly, the art for Cooler's final transformation is just phenomenal. This card as a foil will look absolutely amazing. And I hope to pull a pre-release foil of this card because, whew, it'll be worth some money, that's for sure. Honestly, one of the best and one of the most thematical cards for the deck is going to be Cooler Tyrannical Assault. Just the fact that you can play him for 1 red energy by using a rival and just tossing a red-blue card is ridiculous. And sure, you're like, oh, well, you're -1 to play this card. That's not really a big deal. He's got double strike, so he's going to hit decently hard. 20,000 power is not bad. And then when you play him, your opponent mills the top card. You hit 2 of their cards for -10,000, ignoring barrier. So that's going to trigger your leader's ability twice. Honestly, it's super, super solid. I love this card. If this card, I said this in a previous video we did, if this card is not one of the cards that gets an SPR in this set, I'm going to be highly upset with Bandai. I personally plan to play this more as a mono red deck. I'll probably splash in some blue. There is a couple good red-blue cards that would fit in the deck as well. You've also got your red-blue Beerus super combo from this set that says when it's your opponent's turn and they attack, you combo, you get to untap an energy, and you can untap an energy, and it's almost like playing this card for free because it's going to fit the requirements for your rival because you're comboing with the red-blue card. You're going to activate his ability, or tap the energy, and then untap the energy, and it's like playing the card for no energy. It's fantastic. Another good option for this deck would be the red-yellow Whis super combo, because when you combo with it, you get to reduce an opponent's battle card by -10,000, so that's going to trigger your leader's abilities both during yours and your opponent's turn, so you can kind of ensure that with either of these leaders, you can ensure that on your opponent's turn, even if you're tapped out, you're going to have at least 1 chance to trigger his once per turn that happens on your opponent's turn that makes you draw a card. And so you're going to get your draw power up. You're also going to get your power reducing. You're going to get the mill effects. So either way, you can go with the blue or you can go with the yellow. If you're going more towards... See, I don't know. I don't know which one I would say is better. the red-blue fits that requirement for the arrival, but you can't just have 4 red-blue cards for the arrival. I mean, granted, I guess you could combo one of the coolers to arrival the cooler, but that's going to cost you an additional energy. And doing red-blue wouldn't be bad anyways, because you can run stuff like Sensu Bean. So there are good options for that. But again, Whis would be a fantastic card to run with that as well, just because anything that's power reduction in this deck is going to be almost an immediate having a spot in the deck, just because if it's something you can reduce their power level to trigger the milling, especially something that doesn't cost energy, such as a super combo, then it's definitely something to consider when building this deck. Another great set of cards to run in this deck is going to be the Frieza swap chain from Clash of Fates, starting with Frieza Overture to Battle, because he is what gets the chain going. He's a 1-cost that you play him, you get to swap into a red Frieza with energy cost of 2. Also, when you play him from your hand, you get to give your leader or one of your battle cards plus 5,000 power. So if you're swinging with that leader, you're trying to kill something, or if you have another battle card out that you want to kill something, you can give them that additional power. But the point is not so much the ability to gain the 5,000 power. It's more the ability to swap into Evolutionary Process Frieza for no energy. And during your opponent's turn, he has minus 5,000 power, but that's really not that big of a deal. Ideally, I prefer to play this chain on turn 2, or when I have 2 energy, so I can play the 1-drop, and then use his ability swap to this one. Use his ability for 1 energy, swap to a 3-cost Frieza. And you've got options for your 3-cost Frieza, but me personally, I feel like the best option to go with is the one intended for the swap engine, which is Frieza's Storm of Blows. He's got Barrier, and when you play him, you get to KO an opponent's battle card 20,000 power or less. So he's got protection, and he's got a built-in KO. Pretty solid card. And a really cheap and easy way to go ahead and get Frieza cards out quicker. Now, this card then goes into swap for 2 red energy, swaps into a 5-cost Frieza, which is where full power Frieza 100% Overdrive comes into play. He is a 5-cost Frieza. He's red-blue. He's got triple strike. When he attacks, you get to choose all of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and they get minus 30,000 power for the duration of the turn. Every single one of them. So every card that gets negged by this card's ability is going to trigger Cooler's leader ability. That is insane. And then on top of that, he's a 30,000 triple strike card. So you can do some massive damage with this. If that wasn't good enough, he's got a second auto that makes your opponent mill 2 cards from the top of their deck for every time the power of one opponent's card is decreased. You don't even have to attack with him. It's great that he's 30,000. It's great that he's got triple strike. But he automatically is going to get that extra mill every time your opponent's cards are reduced. So obviously you want to attack with him to trigger the first auto. But then other cards that have power reducing abilities, such as the Whis super combo, for example, or the Arrival Cooler, all of those abilities are going to trigger this card, and it's going to make your opponent mill 2 cards for every card that's reduced. Absolutely insane. So I feel like the Frieza swap engine is detrimental to this deck, and is basically the main focus on how you should be getting this Frieza onto the board. Another solid card to run in the deck would be Frieza Army Reborn. This secret rare, it's just always been all around a good card, in my opinion, for any red deck. Even playing multicolor, you can play this card because even though he requires 5 red energy, if you're playing red-blue, if you're playing red-yellow, whatever, you can still play this card. Quad Strike is insane. Getting to play him for 5 energy is not bad at all. He's got 40,000 power. You're going to rip a card from your opponent's hand, and you're going to KO everything on the board. And I mean actually everything. Because first of all, 40,000 power or less, everything. And then, even if that's not the case, you've got so many freaking cards in this deck, in this set of support that reduce the battle power of your opponent's cards. Nothing is avoiding this. Nothing. And ignores barrier, so everything's gonna die. It's insane because I really came close to getting rid of my 2 secret rares. And I might still, because I'm sure they're probably worth more now than they were. Just like I'm sure the Frieza swap engine has gone up in value as well. But at the same time, I find myself continually holding on to this card because no matter what, if you're playing a red deck, it's just a solid card. It's not stupid overpowered, but it is one of the easiest secret rares to actually play. And despite the fact of the ease of playing him is irrelevant because he is a super solid secret rare that actually has a very good ability as well. If you are planning to play the deck more red-blue, then Mega Frieza Energy Blight is of course going to be a staple for the deck. He's also a card that even if you don't need the blue energy at that time, then you can combo him away to trigger the arrival for the 5-drop cooler, which is going to set a whole bunch of stuff in motion between killing your opponent's battle cards, triggering autos, getting your mills. Like it's going to be a really easy way to get those abilities in play. And it would also help if you were to play cards like Cooler, Clan Avenger. Now this card's going to be a little hard to get a hold of, especially right now, because there's only been, like, I think 2 events over the past 2 weekends, and then I'm not sure how many more events there are before the release of Set 9. It's a really solid card. He's got barrier for built-in protection. If your leader is a Frieza clan, when you play him, you neg one of your opponent's cards 15,000, so that's going to trigger your leader's abilities. And then with your leader being a Frieza clan, at the end of your opponent's turn, they're going to mill an additional card. So you play him, reduce a card, either pop it, or it's weak enough that you can kill it. Bam, trigger the mill. And then just let him sit there. I wouldn't even attack with this card. Just leave him there. Your opponent has to waste resources to get rid of him, or they're going to continue to mill a card. Now, they're milling a card at the end of the turn, and, there's not a whole lot of turns in Dragon Ball Super like there used to be, so it's not like you're going to mill half their deck with this card. But it is a nice addition to the deck, and if you can get a hold of one without having to pay, I think I saw one listed for like $100 fucking dollars, and I'm like, that's fucking stupid. And, of course, that's not the actual value of the card, but since it is scarce at the moment, unless you actually attended the events, then, and a lot of people probably want to hold on to those. So, not a necessary card for the deck, but if you can get a hold of them, it is a pretty neat addition to it. Other cards I would recommend running in this deck would be Frieza's Death Ball. Gives one of your cards an additional 15,000 power, negs one of your opponents, is going to trigger your autos, and works well on activating on your opponent's turn so you can get that extra draw power in. This would be a good card to go alongside Deadly Defender Krillin if you wanted kind of more of a defensive card against your opponent. They're going to have to attack this card, but if you're reducing the power of all of their cards, they're not getting through this card, even at a measly 15,000 power. And that Frieza Death Ball lets you choose a battle card, so you can give him the 15,000, and he'll be 30,000, and that'll give you a boost to be able to protect your life as well. Planet M2 is another solid card, a great turn 1 play, just because it doesn't cost you any energy to activate the abilities after you have played it. So every time you attack, you can use this ability and switch it to rest mode, get a free neg, and get the milling started off at the very beginning of the game. So I would definitely recommend this card if you're looking for something a little early on to play. I can't really find a reason why not to play this card. There is more field removal, but I don't feel like that's a big enough reason to not play a card like this that can get you just a free neg every turn, a free mill, and overall just support the overall theme of the deck. After Image Technique is still one of the best negates in the game, and with this, I don't feel like there's going to be too hard of a problem getting Sparking 5, so you'll be able to trigger it, activate without paying energy, neg one of your opponent's cards, keep yourself alive, and again, this lets you choose one of your cards, not just your leader card. So if you were playing something like, say, Deadly Defender Krillin, this could give that card 40,000 power for the battle if you wanted to protect him from, say, like a really big attack power card. Then you've also got Is That All You've Got, which for the price of discarding a card, you get to neg 2 of your opponent's cards, minus 15,000. It's going to trigger your leader's ability twice. And if you got the 5-drop Frieza out, it's going to trigger his ability as well. So that'd be a total of 6 cards that would get milled from your opponent's deck for you discarding a card and for 1 energy. So this would be a super solid addition as well. There's also the counterplay variant that works similar to this, which is called Your Mine. When a battle card's played, you choose 2 of your opponent's cards, neg them 5,000, and that's going to trigger those abilities as well. It's almost as if like you could just run half the deck as nothing but extra cards, and then just focus on getting out the 5-drop Cooler and the 5-drop Frieza, and then everything else just be all about reducing the battle power of your opponent's cards. There are also a few other cards you could use as well that I don't feel like are as necessary. It would be as useful. There's stuff like Thought I Was Finished, which lets you neg 1 of your opponent's cards, 15,000 power for 1 energy. There's the new Tien Shinhan Spirit Vanisher that lets you discard 2 red and or blue extra cards to play him for free, and when he comes out, he ignores barrier, minus 20k to 1 of your opponent's cards. That lets you play him for free, which is really a nice little addition, especially since he gets around barrier. So if you had a bunch of extra cards, you're like, well, I don't need 15 negates in my hand. You can pitch 2, you can play him, KO a card, activate your activate your milling skill for negging 1 of your opponent's cards. If barrier is a big problematic thing for the deck, you could play Cease to Exist. Lets you neg 2 cards, 25,000 power, ignoring barrier. But you've also got the Frieza that ignores barrier as well. And since you can play him via the swap engine, it's not going to cost you a whole lot of energy to go through all that. So honestly, I don't think Cease to Exist is worth even playing. It could honestly just cease to exist. You could also play the Mach Speed Kaioken Son Goku, which you could play him for 2 energy if you had a red-blue charged, neg a card 10,000 power, and then neg another card 5,000 power. But it doesn't really feel like this would be any different than playing any other type of counterplay, and especially since you could, if you're not solely intent on having this card in play, or having the additional 5,000 on the first neg, then you could just stick with the Your Mine counterplay that features Cooler with minus 5,000 to both cards. Then lastly, there's the Gallic Cannon and the Super Saiyan Vegeta Exploiting Weakness. Now, if you have the cards, then you could play them, but they're Draft Box 4 cards, so they're stupid overpriced for no reason aside from the fact there just happens to be a shortage of them, and a lot of people didn't get Draft Box 4 because of the ridiculously stupid pull rates anyway. So these are cards that, if you have them, great, use them in the deck. If you don't have them, trust me, you're not going to need them. I feel like all the cards that are available easily enough, and the stuff in the set more than supports this archetype, and these cards are just there for extra fluff. Alright, and that's going to go ahead and wrap this video up here. I was trying to make this video a little shorter than some of the others, but it's hard to do that and be, discussing a deck, discussing all the options without going into detail, because you're trying to get the point across of, hey, this is good, this is how we make this better, and you can't really make a video like that and turn it into a 5-minute video. So 20 minutes isn't too bad. That's about 5 minutes longer than I wanted it to be, but I'll take that as a win, considering how long some of our other videos are. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think this new Cooler is going to be, obviously it's going to be really good, do you think it's going to be oppressively good, or just a really good competitive deck? And are there any other cards that you can think of that would really fit in this deck really well? I still see it as more of a red deck with blue splashed in. I don't think I would go too heavy on the red-blue stuff, but that's just me personally. If you guys have figured out anything else to make this deck better, or figured out any other cheeky combos, then feel free to let me know in those comments down below. With that, we're going to go ahead and get the frig out of here, and we'll see you guys in the next video.